Hi Jennifer, this is just a response to your most recent video. To the people who normally watch me, I know I haven't made any videos for a while. The reason for that is I don't normally like making videos while there's anyone else basically in my house or up. My housemate is in bed at the moment, but for a while, for several months, I had a couple of people basically coming over to the house every day. So I literally didn't have time, basically, unfortunately, to do YouTube videos at all. Anyway, this video is a response to Jennifer, Timmy's Mummy01, about her current situation, where she's talked about being in a relationship with a man that she doesn't love, and how that situation is very difficult for her. The one thing I think that really moved me about your video, Jen, was when you made the analogy, you feel as though you're swimming continually in this sort of enormous ocean, and you know it's pitch dark and you're looking around trying to see basically looking around for a hand, someone to essentially reach out to you. And the thing that I found myself thinking is, if I can be, to a small degree, I'd actually like to try and be that hand for you with this video. I mean, I know I probably can't because it's YouTube, it's online, it's a long way away, but whatever else. So there are a couple of things that I want to say to you to try and help, if I can. The first thing is, you are not alone. You're not alone. We are never alone. We really aren't. As far as the thing about essentially being extended a hand is concerned, okay, well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. 2 years ago, I was in a relationship myself, and I've talked about this a bit in some of my other videos if you want to watch those. But I was in a relationship as well with a woman who I also, to a large degree, did not love. I also got into the relationship as a means of leaving home. When the relationship started, I was 26 years old and still living with my parents. My father essentially, I'd known the woman in question for probably about a year before this, but my father essentially came to I was living in a bungalow that was separate from the main house. My father essentially came out to the bungalow one day and just essentially went berserk at me, started screaming at me, as he'd often done before that. And I basically just said to him, look, Dad, I'm really not prepared to tolerate this anymore, because I wasn't. And his response was, well, if that's the case, you need to find somewhere else to live. So at that point, I basically had to move in with this particular woman. I literally moved in that very day. It was a very rapid thing. And I have actually since disowned my father. Not purely because of that. There have been a number of reasons, but I don't communicate with Dad at all anymore. As of right now. Anyway, I got into this relationship with this woman. I was isolated almost completely isolated for a period of 5 years, from 2002 to 2007, roughly. I am currently in the process of trying to reconstruct my life to some degree. I've lost pretty much everyone in both my immediate and extended family. Roughly half of the people that I used to know in my extended family are dead. The other half are either overseas or, for whatever reason, I just don't interact with them. So, aside from my mother, a younger brother, one younger brother, I've got two brothers, one of whom also I'm not really speaking to. I have the other younger brother, my mother, and my housemate, and that's literally pretty much all the direct human interaction I have offline. So I have been through a situation that was similar, at least in terms of being in a relationship with someone who I really didn't love, someone who, for the most part, really didn't treat me very well in some ways, and was definitely very much in a situation where I was completely isolated, really didn't have anyone to talk to about it at all. You actually are considerably more fortunate, I feel, than I was in a number of respects. The first thing is that from what little I've seen, there is an age difference between you and me of probably about 10 years. In other words, I'm going to be 32 in February. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're close to 10 years younger than that from what you've said. That in turn means that you still have a little bit more time, of course, left to work with than I do. The other thing is, I've lost my teeth. I became severely overweight during the 5 years of basically house arrest with the ex-girlfriend. And I'm also in the process, as you can probably see here, of going bald. So, in physical terms anyway, I'm really not likely to be what anyone is really going to consider a great catch. Yeah. But getting out of that relationship was very difficult for me. Very difficult for me. Like you, I went through a period where I didn't know when it was going to end. I didn't think that I was possibly ever going to be able to get out of it. And I'll admit, it was really only a sheer act of will that did allow me to get out of it. I really had to fight, because the woman that I was involved with, she really wanted to hang on to me. So I did really, really have to fight to get out. And in the end, of course, she made this big thing about how, she was going to do the gracious thing and let me go and all of this sort of stuff. But I don't really give her credit for that. I give myself credit for the fact that, because she was actually living in this house, right? I was living in her house, a place that she was renting, and then she lost that. And me, being the stupid idiot that I am, see, when I moved into this house, that was when I was initially planning on getting out of the relationship. But I went back on that, and because she didn't have anywhere else to go, I actually invited her to move in here, which was a really, really dumb thing to do. So I then didn't get free of her for probably another 2 or 3 years more after that. But anyway, I do want to try and encourage you to leave, really. The thing to realise first of all is, it is going to be hard. I'm not going to lie to you. If you manage to do this, if you manage to get out, you will have done something that very few other people will have managed to do. Most people, if they're in a bad relationship, they just stay in it. They just stay in it. Sometimes they stay in it for their entire lives. They tend to especially do that when there's kids involved. I'll admit that's one area where I possibly was a bit more fortunate where you're concerned. My ex-girlfriend had had her tubes clamped, so she wasn't able to actually have kids. She already had 2 kids, but they were fairly old, so they weren't really a problem. But yeah, so I didn't actually have any children by her. Her last relationship though, she was actually separated, of course, from her husband, and he'd been a real jerk, and he'd been, psychologically at least, and I think possibly at one point physically abusive of her. He was a chronic alcoholic and a marijuana smoker. And she'd also been in another bad relationship since then, and I basically represented her revenge against my gender, basically. In other words, she had the mentality that she'd taken a lot of crap from the opposite sex for a long time, and so therefore I basically represented a scenario where I was going to be dominated by her, and she was basically just going to have free reign. She shafted me economically, in particular, pretty much the entire time that we were together, while stridently denying that she ever did that every time I brought it up. My economic situation since leaving her has improved absolutely out of sight. And the other thing, though, that I really wanted to bring up with you about being damaged goods, you're really not. You're really, really not. But yeah, I've been subscribed to a number of women on YouTube who actually really genuinely were damaged goods. You're not, Jen. You're, from everything I've seen, you're one of the most genuine, actually emotionally stable, giving, generous women that I've seen on YouTube, really. I mean, yeah, I've seen a couple of other, nice women on here, but I've seen a couple of other women as well, and I've noticed that these tend to be the ones who are, stereotypically speaking, the most what a lot of people anyway basically rave on about as being attractive, physically I mean. But the thing is that internally most of them really aren't. I mean, I was subscribed to one particular girl a bit back, and I'm not going to name names, but she was, in the stereotypical sense, really physically beautiful. And I initially thought that she was authentic as well. She made a video a while back which made it seem as though she was. But then she put a number of other videos out which basically eventually led me to realise that she was essentially just really messed up in the head, and that she wasn't anywhere near as genuine as I thought she was. Yeah, so she actually reminded me of my ex-girlfriend in a lot of ways. I really do, though. The other thing that I want to say to you is, please don't stay in the relationship with this guy purely for the sake of your son. Understand that, as you found out about your mother, she was right in terms of leaving the guy that she was with, and trusting that you would eventually find out that he was a jerk yourself. And in the same way, even though Timmy might resent you for a long time, if he does resent you, if it was me, I'd just say to him, look, Timmy, eventually you're going to, ring the guy up, and eventually you're going to find out, that Dad was an arsehole. And the reason why I left him is because he was a jerk, and he was treating me really badly, and I didn't want you to grow up with that either. So I wouldn't worry too much, about that. I mean, yes, Timmy probably would resent you for a while if you did it, but eventually he would see his father's own behaviour, and he would come to realise, as you did, that you were right in moving away from his father. I apologise for the fact that I'm continually stopping and starting the recording. Windows Movie Maker's being really weird. I've basically had to remake half of this because half of it just got left out for some reason. And in one of the videos, or the last clip that I recorded, it had just a still shot from the end of the video going on for about 15 minutes after I actually stopped talking, so I had to edit that out. Yeah, and it's still being unbelievable now. Yeah. So anyway, Jen, the last thing that I want to say to you, and hopefully it'll actually let me record this now, is listen to the voice within yourself that is telling you to get out of the relationship. You do deserve better. You will be able to find someone else. Please don't believe that you will be on your own for the rest of your life. It's not going to happen. You are a beautiful woman, inside and out. And as I said, you're one of the most genuine people on here that I've seen. So, yeah, I don't doubt for one moment that you'll be able to find someone after this relationship. But yeah, you deserve better, your son deserves better, and I really do hope that you are going to be able to find the strength of will to leave the relationship. To really make a better future for yourself, because you do deserve that. And I'll talk to you soon.